This question comes from, well, probably no one, because who in their right mind would suggest dumping all of Earth's ice into the Sahara Desert? But let's say we do it anyway. What if we took all the ice from the glaciers, the polar caps, every frozen lake and mountaintop, and just piled it up in the middle of North Africa? Let's start with the obvious, that's a lot of ice. Earth currently has about 26 million cubic kilometers of it, mostly locked up in Antarctica and Greenland. If you somehow scooped up all that frozen water and deposited it neatly into the Sahara, you'd end up with a mountain of ice taller than Mount Everest, wider than France, and generally very upsetting to look at. The Sahara, for its part, would not be thrilled. It's not really designed to store that much water. The average elevation across the desert is only about 450 meters. Your ice pile would be over 9 kilometers tall. Most of it would stick out like a cone of shame on a continent that already gets very little rain and is absolutely unprepared for any sort of mass glacial makeover. But what happens next? First, the ice begins to melt. Fast. The average temperature in the Sahara hovers around 30 to 40 C, 86 to 104 F, in summer, and often more. The ice, which has been kept cold for thousands or even millions of years, now finds itself sunbathing in the hottest sandbox on Earth. It doesn't go well. Melting 26 million cubic kilometers of ice would take a while, but not as long as you might think. The top layers would quickly form rivers, flooding ancient dry basins and sweeping across the desert floor. The sand, long deprived of water, would become a giant mud pit. The heat would cause enormous amounts of evaporation. Massive clouds would form over the region, leading to localized, torrential downpours. It would rain in the Sahara. A lot. You might be thinking, hey, maybe this is good. The desert will finally bloom. And for a moment, it might. Seeds that have been dormant for decades could suddenly sprout. Microbial life would stir. Frogs would appear out of nowhere, because frogs are like that. You'd get ponds, maybe lakes, and somewhere a camel would look confused but happy. But then the problems start. First, the sheer weight of the ice would deform the Earth's crust. Greenland's ice sheet alone is pressing down the land beneath it by hundreds of meters. Putting that much weight in the middle of Africa would cause a massive isostatic depression. The desert floor would sink. And once the ice melted, it wouldn't bounce back quickly, it would take thousands of years. Congratulations, you've just created Africa's newest basin. Also, the redistribution of water mass would affect Earth's rotation. Just like spinning with your arms extended slows you down, piling all the mass in one region would slightly change the planet's spin. Days would become imperceptibly longer, which would be annoying mostly to atomic clock enthusiasts. And let's talk about sea levels. If you remove all that ice from the poles, you're also removing the thing that's keeping sea levels low. Once the ice is gone from Antarctica and Greenland, sea levels would rise by about 70 meters. Entire coastlines would vanish. Florida would be underwater, along with most major coastal cities, New York, Shanghai, London, Sydney. All gone. But hey, the Sahara's got a beach now. The change in global climate would be extreme. Polar regions, no longer cooled by ice, would heat up fast. The Sahara, covered in water, would become humid. Weather patterns across the world would shift. Jet streams would wobble. Monsoons would appear in places that never had them. Crops would fail in some regions and boom in others. And somewhere, a climatologist would just throw their hands in the air and go live in a cave. But perhaps the strangest part is this: it might not last. All that water sitting in the Sahara would eventually evaporate or seep into the ground. The desert would try to reclaim its dry legacy. In a few hundred years, the entire area could dry up again, leaving behind salt flats, strange fish fossils, and the haunted remains of one very ambitious experiment. So, what if we dumped all of Earth's ice into the Sahara? You'd temporarily green the desert, flood the world, break the crust, scramble the weather, and then eventually be right back where you started. Except now the penguins are homeless and the camels are wet.